Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. When we think about the American Revolution, what images come to mind? It's probably men in tricorn hats, soldiers marching with muskets, George Washington crossing the Delaware. It's a story we all know, or at least we think we do. But what if I told you that a huge part of this story has been hiding in plain sight? That the fight for independence wasn't just won by men on the battlefield, but by countless women whose contributions were just as vital, yet often overlooked. Today, we're pulling back the curtain of history to reveal the hidden, and honestly, incredible roles women played in America's fight for freedom. Let's start with the most direct, yet most concealed role. Women disguised as soldiers. It sounds like something out of a movie, but it was a reality for women like Deborah Sampson. Born into poverty in Massachusetts, Deborah was a young woman with a fierce desire for independence, not just for her country, but for herself. In 1782, she did the unthinkable. She bound her chest, cut her hair, and enlisted in the 4th Massachusetts Regiment under the name Robert Shirtliff. And she wasn't just a token soldier. She fought in several skirmishes and was wounded twice. The first time, she took 2 musket balls to her thigh. Fearing a field doctor would discover her secret, she extracted one of the balls herself with a penknife and sewing needle, an act of sheer grit that's almost unimaginable. She carried the other ball in her leg for the rest of her life. Her secret was only discovered when she fell gravely ill with a fever and was taken to a hospital. But instead of being punished, she was honorably discharged by none other than General Washington himself. Deborah Sampson's story is extraordinary, but she wasn't entirely unique. Many other women likely fought and died as men, their secrets buried with them. Beyond the battlefield, a silent army of women was waging a different kind of war, a war of intelligence. Spies were absolutely critical to the revolutionary effort, and women, often dismissed and overlooked by the British, were perfectly positioned to gather information. Take Agent 355, a mysterious figure in the Culper spy ring, one of Washington's most effective intelligence networks. Her true identity remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the Revolution. What we do know is that she was a woman from a prominent Loyalist family in New York, which gave her access to high-ranking British officers. She used her social standing to get close to them, charming her way into conversations and overhearing military plans. She would then pass this vital information along. Information that helped uncover Benedict Arnold's treason and thwarted a British plan to ambush French forces. Agent 355 was eventually captured and is believed to have died on a British prison ship. Her sacrifice and her name may be lost to history, but her impact was undeniable. Women like her were the eyes and ears of the Continental Army, risking everything in the shadows. Now let's talk about the home front, because this is where the majority of women made their stand. When men marched off to war, who do you think kept the country running? Women did. They became farmers, blacksmiths, merchants, and managers of family businesses overnight. Martha Washington, far from just being a passive first lady, managed the vast Mount Vernon estate, overseeing harvests and finances, ensuring the economic engine of their life didn't stall. This was happening on farms and in towns all across the colonies. Women were running the businesses, planting the crops, and raising the livestock that fed both their families and the army. Without their economic labor, the entire revolutionary cause could have collapsed from within. They were the logistical backbone of the war, and their support didn't stop at economics. Women organized themselves into powerful support networks. They formed spinning bees to weave cloth for uniforms, refusing to buy British textiles in one of the earliest forms of mass political protest. Groups like the Daughters of Liberty were instrumental in enforcing boycotts of British goods. In Philadelphia, Esther de Burt, Reed, and Sarah Franklin Badge, Benjamin Franklin's daughter, spearheaded the Ladies' Association of Philadelphia. They went door to door, raising what would be over $7 million in today's money to support the troops. Their original plan was to give each soldier cash. But George Washington, perhaps a bit short-sighted on this one, worried the soldiers would just spend it on alcohol. He suggested they use the money for clothing instead. So, undeterred, these women switched gears, bought linen, and sewed thousands of shirts for the Continental Army, each one stitched with the name of the woman who made it. This wasn't just charity, it was a powerful act of political solidarity. And we can't forget the camp followers. This term often has negative connotations. But the reality was far more complex. These were the wives, daughters, and mothers who followed the Continental Army from camp to camp. They were not just bystanders, they were an essential mobile support system. They worked as laundresses, cooks, and nurses. In an era before modern sanitation, keeping soldiers' clothing clean was a life-or-death matter, preventing the spread of diseases like dysentery and typhus that could wipe out an army faster than any battle. They cooked the meals that fueled the soldiers, and most importantly, they tended to the sick and wounded. Think of women like Margaret, Captain Molly Corbin. During a battle at Fort Washington, her husband, who was firing a cannon, was killed. Without a moment's hesitation, Margaret took his place, cleaning and loading the cannon and continuing to fire until she herself was severely wounded by grape shot, which tore her arm and chest. She was captured by the British, but eventually released. In recognition of her bravery, the Continental Congress awarded her a lifetime soldier's pension, making her one of the first, if not the first, American woman to receive one. She was known for the rest of her life as Captain Molly, a title of respect earned in blood. Her story, and that of the more famous Molly Pitcher, likely a composite figure based on women like Margaret Corbin and Mary Ludwig Hayes, shows that the line between camp follower and combatant could blur in an instant. So why have these stories been so hidden? For a long time, history was written by men, about men. Great man theory of history focused on generals and politicians, while the daily essential labor of women was deemed domestic, and therefore unimportant to the grand narrative of war and nation-building. The legal status of women at the time, as dependents of their fathers or husbands, also meant their actions were rarely recorded as their own. Deborah Sampson had to become a man to have her military service officially recognized. Agent 355's identity is lost precisely because her power lay in her anonymity. But by uncovering these stories, we get a much richer, more accurate picture of our own history. We see that the American Revolution wasn't just a series of battles fought by men. It was a societal-wide struggle for independence, a collective effort where women were indispensable partners. They fought, they spied, they ran the economy, they supplied the army, and they healed the wounded. They were revolutionaries in every sense of the word. Their courage and resilience laid a foundation for the nation, and their stories deserve to be told, celebrated, and remembered. They weren't just supporting the war effort. Thanks so much for watching. If you found these stories as inspiring as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more hidden histories. And let me know in the comments, what other forgotten figures from history should we talk about next? See you in the next video.